What's up everyone? This video is regarding a terrible practice that I've noticed many people have been doing to their PS3s, and I'd like to explain why this is a bad practice so that you don't turn a working PS3 into a dead PS3. What am I talking about, you may be wondering? The eraser mod. If you're not familiar with the eraser mod, then I'll explain very briefly. Basically, the eraser mod is when you apply an eraser or a thermal pad directly underneath the PS3 CPU so that when you reassemble the system, extra pressure is being applied against the CPU, which is supposed to create better thermal conductivity with the heatsink. This sounds great, right? So why am I calling this a terrible practice? Well, the issue here is that the CPU was never designed to withstand that sort of pressure. If you look at the backplate that Sony designed here, you'll notice that these four little contact points will apply pressure against the motherboard. The motherboard, not the CPU, the motherboard. When you shove an eraser or a thermal pad into this hole and apply pressure against the CPU, all you're doing is applying uneven pressure against the CPU, which could warp it, fracture the tiny little solder balls underneath it, or worst case scenario, cause the die to literally crack. And I see a lot of people who defend this mod with the argument that Sony themselves did something like it. They are referring to this little piece of plastic that Sony service centers used to install, which results in the CPU getting lower temperatures, just like the eraser mod does. One key difference that these people keep missing though, is that Sony's method only applies pressure against the motherboard, not the CPU. As you can see, this piece of plastic acts more like a motherboard brace rather than a butt plug that sodomizes your CPU. The section of the CPU brace that goes into this hole is not long enough to make contact with the CPU, and the section that does make contact with the motherboard is designed to be as thick as the original four contact points found on the CPU's backplate. As a result, the mod that Sony designed perfectly applies pressure against the motherboard and still results in better thermals for the CPU. Sure, the eraser mod may result in better thermals, but what's the point if you end up killing your CPU anyways? And just to remind everyone, the CPU is married to your motherboard. Once you kill that, your motherboard is totaled. Sure, you could pay a professional a small fortune to replace the CPU and everything else that's tied to it, but in my opinion, doing that is totally dumb and avoidable. If you really want your CPU to get better thermals, I'd suggest having your PS3 delidded and having all of the thermal paste replaced. This means replacing the thermal paste both over and under the IHS. Sony's repair technicians never did this, which is why they designed their CPU brace in the first place. It gets the job done for now, but you can get better and longer lasting results by actually replacing the thermal paste rather than trying to squeeze whatever last bit of life you can out of the factory stuff. I personally offer such a service, which I'll link in the description for anyone interested. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Bye-bye.